The day begins with a journey to find calm waters. Very strong easterly wind, so we're gonna go and tuck in on the west coast, see what we can find. So Max has just put the boat in. He's now just got to park the car and trailer. And then we are going to be motoring for about an hour just to try and find calmer waters. As you can see behind me here, it's quite rough in the harbour. You know when it's quite rough in the harbour, it's going to be pretty nasty out to sea. Look at this. Oh, it's a ferry. I wouldn't like to be on her today.
Yeah?
They usually moor her up over there, but I think they brought her over here because of easterly.
It's too rough. The Rough Seas crossing, you know, everything.
Rough ride, but we're going to get in and dive. But, wow, he's braving it.
So when we spearfish in these conditions, we actually have a variety of signals that we use as divers to communicate with the boat driver. We will also have a float, or we'll dive in a pair, and one person holds the float whilst the other one dives, and after every single dive we check in with each other, just making sure everything's okay. In this instance, although it was really rough and windy and there was a big swell, we still had about 3 to 4 meters visibility, which was actually really pleasant. After doing such a long journey, we were very happy to have this visibility. And first dive, I descended to a pinnacle which has loads of kelp on top. There's these huge granite pinnacles down off Land's End, and they're beautiful places to dive. But usually we don't see bass, and on this first dive, a school of bass comes straight in to have a look at me. quite a small bass, quite close to the minimum size, but on a day like today we didn't want to be too picky, and it's important to get some food for the table. We changed position a bit because all we were finding were big schools of schoolie bass, and on a slightly deeper pinnacle we came across some pollock cruising about. There were not the same numbers here as usual as we'd find in the summer, but you'll see that later on. But it was pleasant to get a nice 3-pound pollock come right in, and the accuracy of this Cressy Cherokee fast is fantastic. I pulled off another stone shot, and this was actually the second time I'd fired this gun. 2 shots, both stone shots on not the biggest fish, so really happy with the way that gun shoots.
How was it, Mr. Frenchman? What do you think, mate?
Hey, it's been a good day. It's nice to be out.
Yeah.
Challenging fishing.
Yeah. Did manage a bass each and a couple of pollock, but it is just so windy. Probably 40-50 mile-hour winds. They're coming offshore, but still enough to turn the sea into, well, a bit of a scruffy mess, as you've seen today. Time to head home. There we are. Lovely. Yeah, they will. We actually have decided, instead of going back to Penzance, we'd just come here to Sen and take the boat out here because the water's so rough, because this coast is so exposed. It would be a 3-hour trip home without a wave, so we're just going to pull the boat out here. Very different to when we were last here. When we were last here it was well, about 2 months ago now, and we were greeted with much better conditions, better visibility. I'll let a few of those clips roll now, just so you can see what it was like in contrast.
Kind of punching well above my weight, I think.
What's that?
Well, you know, I'm with dive royalty.
It'll be daft. And this is the Frenchman right here.
Hello.
Kev, how are you feeling about today?
I feel very good today. Very good.
How was your 4 AM wake up?
I'm so used to 4 AM now. It used to be 3:15. Max is being generous. So, not too bad.
So this was back in October with my mate Ed, Kevin, and again Max is the pilot, and we're heading out from Penzance again, and we're actually diving exactly the same marks that we did in that really rough footage you just saw. We started off warming up in the shallows in about 3 to 4 meters, and there were heaps and heaps of mullet around. As you can see, it's much calmer, it's sunny, the visibility is close to 8, maybe 10 meters, and there were just loads of mullet feeding off the kelp. And this one here just stayed around a bit too long. After this we pushed out a little bit deeper, and as soon as we were hitting the 10-meter mark, there are some really good sized pollock cruising about. This was the first pollock I pulled the trigger on, which came in at about 3 kilograms. Should get some lovely fillets off for the family. Quite happy with that shot, pretty much a stone shot, not damaging any of the fillet, and the fish really doesn't know much about it. On a pinnacle much further out to sea here, still only in about 10 metres, there were heaps of good sized pollock just cruising around just above the kelp line. They're very, very trusting fish. As long as you wait long enough on these kelpie pinnacles using a SPEARO, eventually, 9 times out of 10, a good sized pollock comes right in for a look. That wasn't the best shot there, I actually left it a little bit late, but it did the job. And as you can see, this was absolutely spectacular. I'm here in this gully just full of bait fish, mullet, pollock, bass. Just a beautiful, beautiful sight. So after we had a couple of pollock each, Max was really keen to try a cod spot, which is about 500 metres offshore. Not on a pinnacle here, we're just on the seabed, and this is actually the deepest dive I've done this year. This is a 34 metre dive, and you can see it's quite kind of uncharted for a lot of spearfishermen, these kinds of depths and this kind of scenery. We're down here with the dead man's fingers and sea urchins, but as you can see, there were absolutely thousands of pilchards and horse mackerel. At one point it actually made the hunting for the cod really quite difficult because we just couldn't see anything except bait fish. Unfortunately no cod were found, but it was really good practice, practicing to do the deeper dives and relaxing and free falling here from about 20 metres, possibly almost 15 metres, just working on the free fall very slowly down to 34 metres, and that actually felt really good for me. You can see we're keeping an eye on each other here at these depths. I'm about 10 metres above the Frenchman here as he lines up on a pollock. Not the cod we were looking for, but all the same we got some great pollock that day, so we couldn't complain. Possibly due to the numbers of bait around, there were just tuna cutting about on the surface. We didn't see any tuna underneath the surface, which would have been amazing, but it was good to glimpse a tuna on the surface all the same. We came back inshore to finish the day off, and there were just heaps of mullet and bass cruising about. Very different to the dive I showed you at the start of the video, but I thought it was quite interesting to compare and contrast the two trips.
So I hope you enjoyed that footage showing the contrasting conditions from summer to now. As you can see, the Frenchman's right, it was pretty rough out there today. Visibility was quite low, but just wonderful to get out, pre-locked down with baits and, you know, test ourselves in the conditions. We had a great time, and hope to see you in the next video. Cheers. Job done.